Welcome back to Pratfall. I'm Sean and I'm here with Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hello, mate.
And today we're going to be going through the patch notes and just a little rundown of the recent Back to the Shroud update for Enshrouded. So starting off, Ben, we have probably the biggest part of the update, which is the difficulty settings and gameplay modifiers, don't we?
Yeah, lovely.
That's the part that we're probably the most excited for. So there are now multiple different game modes. So we've got default, which is what we've all played on so far. Then we have a more relaxed mode, which is nice, which has less enemies and more loot and resources. So I guess that'll be more catered to people that want to build, right?
I guess so, yeah. It's the closest thing we have to a creative mode right now, I guess.
Yeah, just a more calm experience where you just want to go through at your own sort of pace. On the sort of flip side of that, we now have a hard mode, which spawns more enemies and the enemies are much more aggressive. So we'll be interested to see how that compares to the default mode, whether it's like noticeably worse or whether it's just like a little sort of minute increase in difficulty. So one thing that is genuinely quite exciting, and I don't think you and I expected them to add this, which is a survival mode.
I didn't expect this, to be honest. It's one of those things where obviously a lot of the survival game purists, let's say, would not consider Enshrouded to be a survival game. It's an adventure game more than anything. With these settings, I mean, we'll obviously get into the details a bit later on, but there's a bunch of modifiers, starvation, food actually matters more so than just to like give you a buff. Essentially, you're gonna need that stuff, like a true survival experience. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy that, and it might end up bringing some people back to the game. Yeah,
I think it'll bring some people back to the game and some people potentially to the game that might not have even considered it before, which is interesting. Yeah, I could see it doing a lot. So that adds hunger, as Ben said. You drop all of your backpack when you die, and again, the enemies are much more aggressive. So on top of that, we also now have a fully customizable option in the gameplay settings, which we'll get into the nitty gritty of later on in the video, but there's loads of options there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very exciting, isn't it, Ben?
It's very exciting.
So next up, we have something that, again, I don't think we necessarily expected. We have collectible props. So this ranges from armor and weapon stands, which we've wanted for a long time, as well as them adding collectible items within the world. So the only thing they've mentioned in the patch notes is fossils. But I'd imagine there's other sort of little trinkets and knickknacks we can find that can then be displayed on decorative shelves. So just another way to spruce up your bases, I guess.
Yeah, the fossils are interesting. Like, do you think they will be in set locations underground, or do you think it's one of those things where you can just like randomly find them from digging?
Yeah, come across them. Yeah, it's tough to say. Maybe it's a mixture of both. There's some that have set locations and then some you can just find by chance.
Maybe. It's a very cool addition, though. It's not something I really thought about. Like we said, the stands were the main thing, but having these little collectibles, it just helps you spruce up your base. There's a lot of builders that enjoy this game, Sean, so I think they'll have a field day with that, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. Just anything that lets us add a little bit of our own personality and flavour into our builds is always welcome. So next up, we have a couple of new character customization options. I think this is one thing that a fair few people wanted. I'm not too fussed, but we can now customize skin colour, eye colour, and eyebrow color, as well as there being 6 additional preset characters to choose from. So that's always nice.
And for all those of you who don't like the body proportions, we're still hobbits, okay? So just deal with it.
Just accept
I don't think
it.
It's changing.
I kind of like being hobbits.
I'm into it.
So other than that, most of the other stuff are just mostly fixes to existing mechanics and stuff like that. The link to the patch notes themselves will be in the description if you do want to go and have a full read through. But there's a few little minor changes that are worth just sort of vaguely touching on. So the first one is torches can now be dropped when crouching. I didn't know you couldn't do this in the first place, but that sort of ties in with the possibility of lowering enemy perception range. So stealth is clearly something that they're looking into improving as time goes on, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. I do love stealth in video games, Sean. Enshrouded is not one where I enjoy the stealth, I must admit. It's something that I played around with briefly when the game came out, and I was like, this isn't really working. It's not preferable, is it? So I just kind of gave up on it. And we have like daggers and things now, and yeah, it certainly seems like they're headed in the direction of making stealth more viable. So that's cool.
So you mentioned daggers there, Ben, as well, with the concept of stealth mechanics and stuff like that. They're also adding a quick reflex block skill, which is effectively improving your efficiency blocking with daggers. So it's nice that they're expanding the dagger mechanic, which they added in the last update.
Apparently they've reworked the damage zones of daggers as well, so that like smaller enemies like rats can be hit more reliably. That's cool.
Yes, yeah. It shows they're clearly on the ball with noticing things that aren't quite working.
Yeah, I mean, I've always played like Sword and Shield in Enshrouded, but when we started a new world, I did try out the daggers, and I have noticed that with smaller enemies, you just kind of strike over their head, and it's really frustrating. So that's good to see.
A couple of little changes to magic. So the most prominent in my eyes being the Firebolt and Ice Bolt spells now move quicker when you cast them. This is designed basically just to make it easier to hit moving enemies and stuff like that. So nothing too major, but I think that will make being a mage and playing as a mage more satisfying if you can hit quicker moving enemies. On top of that, there's also a little update to the Light Burst spell. I've not used much of the Light Burst spell myself, but they've made it more effective with a wider range, being able to knock enemies back a little bit further and stun enemies from further away. And then the last thing is just they've made one major change to the UI. So in crafting menus and stuff like that, we now have a sort of folder view on the side, so we can just quickly click to different items within the crafting menus.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've played the game briefly before recording this, and we're kind of on the fence about it, aren't we? We're not too sure, but I think the old UI, we've just become so accustomed to it, so we're like, oh, I don't know if I like it. But when you guys try it out, let us know if you prefer it or if you prefer the old one.
Okay, Ben, so that's all of the patch note, or the major stuff in the patch note sorted. As I say, if you do want to go and read through all of them, the link will be in the description. But now on to the sort of more major thing that we're seeing in this update, which is the fully customizable world modifiers. And there's lots of stuff here, so we'll
This is what I'm excited for, man.
Yeah, me too. I think it's gonna change the game in such a vast way that all of this replayability will just appear out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
So as we said earlier, there's now relaxed, default, hard, and survival settings as presets, as well as this custom option here. So starting at the top, we have, well, it says enemy difficulty. So all of these settings will affect different aspects of combat with enemies. So enemy damage, that can go all the way up to 500%, Ben.
500?
Yep, 5 times as much damage from the enemies. So that's a bit terrifying.
That's insane. I thought at the most you'd be able to double it.
Yeah. No, it looks like we can make it incredibly hard. What about boss damage? That can go up to 500 as well, so that's good to know. Enemy health can go up to 400%. So again, 4 times the amount of health.
And I guess the same with boss health, right?
Same with boss, yeah.
Enemy stamina is an interesting one. I'm still not entirely sure what that would mean. Would it be related to their like stun bar or anything? Because you don't really, I don't know about you, but I don't notice like a stamina system amongst the enemies.
No, they don't get worn out. If you click on it, it says it will take longer to stun enemies with a higher enemy stamina. So it is purely stunning, yeah. So enemy perception range, Ben.
That's really interesting. And it says scales how far the enemies can see and hear the player.
Yes.
Which again, like stealth comes into play there, you know. It's difficult enough as it is on 100, and you can bump that up to 200%, which isn't a massive increase compared to like the health and stuff, but it's still they can be seeing you from distances. We're talking about the hollow holes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Just bumping these settings up for the hollow holes would be kind of insane.
Yeah, trying to have this like incredibly difficult experience going into a dungeon that's already relentless with all of these settings bumped up will be, well, it'll certainly be an experience. Pacifying enemies. So this is a big one. This is obviously, you know, it needs no explanation. You turn it on and enemies don't attack you unless you attack them first. So this will be really good. And there's a few settings in here that will be really good for creating a preset that is effectively as close to a creative mode as we can get. So yeah, if you want to go in and you just want a really calm experience where you can just build, just pop pacify enemies on, you can go around the world freely as long as you don't accidentally attack enemies. they will leave you the hell alone.
And also, if you are a content creator like we are, that could be really cool for getting cinematic shots and things like that. Maybe background footage for videos like this,
So simultaneous enemy attacks.
Yeah, so we have obviously default. You can bump that down to easy. Then we have hard and very hard. So I guess it's that video game thing, right? If everyone attacks you one at a time.
Yeah.
When in reality they would all in real life just murder you, wouldn't they?
See, again, imagine, like we said, the hollow halls, bumping that up to very hard. Like,
I think it all comes back to the hollow halls, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I think the hollow halls will be a really good way to showcase a lot of these settings and how relentless, and on the flip side, how calm we're able to make the game now.
Yeah, so when we did our hollow hall series, I got a bit ragey because I play a melee character, right? And I'm just in this swarm of skeletons, and I felt like I was getting stun locked at times because they would just relentlessly attack me and I couldn't move and I'd just be stunned. So again, moving it up to very hard, how would you even move?
It would be insane.
I guess you couldn't let yourself get trapped, right? If you get trapped, you're done.
You'd have to be incredibly cautious, yeah. Enemy attack frequency. So again, the pause between one attack and another. Being able to up that to 300. I mean, I already don't think there's that.
400.
Is it? 400. Blimey, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I already feel like they attack pretty frequently. It doesn't feel like there's a huge gap between attacks a lot of the time.
I mean, think about the green men. For those of you who haven't watched any of our content, the green cleaver guys from the scavenger faction, the one that everyone hates, they are rapid. Right?
Yeah, imagine that 4 times the speed.
4 times, like if you lowered that to 25%, they would attack like any other enemy.
Yes, exactly.
But whacking it up to 400, I don't know. There's so many things to test out. It's exciting.
So we have enemy spawn amount. So obviously you can either bump it down to few and have much less enemies roaming around to deal with, or you can bump it up to more and then many. So
I love the way they phrase that.
Yeah. I'll be very interested. Again, Ben, we just keep going back to the hollow halls. I think we're just excited to get in there.
But even, bro, think about when you're in the Shroud, for example, the critters that come out of the ground. What if there were just dozens of them?
Yes.
Just swarming you,
Yeah, it's terrifying, isn't it? Okay, so onto the player settings. So again, this is all just stuff personal to the player. So you can up player health, sort of similar to the enemies, player mana. I like mana. I always feel like I don't have enough mana, even though I've put a lot of skill points into the mana build. So being able to put that up to, okay. Putting it up brings it down.
Down?
That's strange. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. I would have expected an increase when you drag it up.
I mean, hopefully they work as intended if you set them to
yeah, we'll have to test that out.
Yeah, but it's the same as the enemy. It's the reverse of that, isn't it?
Same sort of stuff. You could bump up your stamina so that you can just glide as long as you want to without having to worry about falling. So onto one of the more exciting areas in the custom settings. We have the survival settings. So starvation mode, Ben. That's probably the biggest part, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we have off and then we have on, ladies and gentlemen. Time until starvation. So default, it is 10 minutes. You can drop that to 5 minutes.
Jesus.
Which, I think any less than that would just be kind of ridiculous. Or it can go up to 20, which doesn't seem too bad, right?
Yeah, 20 would be fair, I think.
Yeah, but 5 minutes seems like that's a good little survival experience. But to be fair, it's not difficult to get your hands on food in the game, so I don't know. We have time in the Shroud, so that can go up to 200% or down to 50. Okay, and there's like 10% increments there.
Yeah.
So you can customize it quite a bit without it being too brutal, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I would have liked to see 25. I think that could have been interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So all half the time. Yeah.
To make it really, really risky.
Yeah. You have to just run in there, get what you need, and fucking get out again.
Yeah, sure.
Loot loss on death. That's a very interesting one. So you can set to either keep all or lose all. And again, it just adds to the survival experience. I feel like most survival games don't even punish you that much, right, to where you lose everything. It sounds pretty punishing anyway.
Yeah.
Then you've got day duration and night duration. So standard for day is 30 minutes, night is 12. It never feels like it. Is that the default?
Yes, I think so.
Wow, okay, wild. Feels like it's always nighttime. But you can bump both of them up to an hour, or you can bring them down to 2 minutes.
That's insane. Can you imagine just like the day and night cycle going past every 2 minutes?
Then you've got food buff duration. So that can go up to 200% or down to 50%. And then you can turn off weapon durability, which I feel like that shouldn't be under survival personally, but
yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on though, bro. So we have weapon durability off and on. Is there no slider for that?
No, so you can either just turn it on and off, on or off, so either weapons will break at a set rate or they just won't break at all.
Yeah, because I do feel like sometimes they're a bit too punishing with that as well, in the durability always seems really quick to run to zero.
Yes.
I'd like to be able to adjust that a bit instead of just turning it off completely, but I mean, it's better than nothing.
Okay, so on to the final section of the customization options is resources. So we have workshop production speed. So that's beautiful. I mean, it just gets rid of the grind. We just finally have the option to get rid of all the grinding, especially for builders and stuff that just want as close to a creative experience as they can get. Being able to wang that all the way up to 200, double that speed, that'll make a big difference in getting things done.
What kind of maniac would drop it to 25%?
Yeah, I can't imagine why you'd want to make it longer.
Like, I understand wanting the gameplay to be harder, but like that's just maniacal.
So a lot of these settings are of the same sort of vein. So we have the same with plant growth speed. Again, if you want that flax coming nice and quick, you can bump that up again, I believe, to 200%. So that's always nice. Weapon upgrade cost. I have noticed that like the cost for runes generally feels, I would say, too low. Like you end up with way too many runes than you know what to do with. So being able to bump that up a little bit, just so it feels like you're using the runes effectively and that you don't just have a chest full of runes for no reason. Weapon upgrade recycling yield. So that just states how many runes you'll get when you salvage upgraded weapons. So again, on the flip side, if you want more runes and you feel like you don't have enough, you can always bump that up so that you just, all your spare weapons that you don't have any need for, you can just scrap them and get an absolute metric ton.
Yeah, that's the one.
Now, this is probably one of my, I suppose the next two are my most excitable settings. So mining damage, obviously that just means you'll get more loot for your, or more resources for each hit of either a iron ore vein or dirt or stone. You'll just be able to get things
on investment.
Yes. Oh, scales the amount of materials per loot stack. So does that mean you can just stack more in one go so you can fit more in your inventory? I assumed that meant you're more likely to find more loot, but maybe not.
Yeah, that's it's quite ambiguous, isn't it?
But yeah, that is all of the customization settings. There's a lot of us to play with. Oh, no, that's not right. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things for us to play with. So we should all get stuck in, try and learn each of these sliders in and out. Ben and I are going to get a load of content out, sort of going into the nitty gritty of each of these settings and trying to work out and demonstrate to you guys exactly what each slider does in terms of actual gameplay. But yeah, it's an exciting time, isn't it, Ben? I think there's a lot of stuff for us to get stuck in with.
Oh, I can't wait. We've got a bunch of ideas, bunch of things we want to try. Let us know in the comments what you guys are most excited for in terms of the difficulty settings. Are you gonna just punish yourself? Are you gonna make everything as hard as it can possibly be? Do you want a more relaxed experience? What are you going to do? Are you going to lower workshop production speed to 25%? What are you thinking?
Oh dear. Well, we've been Pratfall. I've been Sean.
I'm Ben.
Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you
Next time.